Galactic Database Entry 7249P Classification Class 1 Survival Risk Subject Making Humans Say Please Status Urgent Update Required Last Modified Galactic Date 47392.6 Warning: the following information is considered essential reading for all species planning first contact with humans. Failure to heed these warnings may result in total societal collapse, severe psychological trauma, and an overwhelming urge to retire to a meditation monastery on the outer rim. Incident report follows. Looking back, we should have known better. The warning signs were there from the very beginning. But no, we just had to try to civilize them. In our defense, we were the Politeness Empire. It was literally our thing. We had successfully taught 37 species the proper way to say thank you in 12 dimensions. We had established the galactic standards for dinner party etiquette. We even managed to convince the Vraxa species that communicates entirely through interpretive dance to bow properly before meals. But humans broke us. I'm Agent Max Decorum, and this is my testimony. I was there for first contact, you see. Chief Etiquette Enforcer for the Empire's Department of Please and Thank You. 20 years of impeccable service, 14 medals for outstanding courtesy in the field, and a perfect record for teaching proper manners to newly discovered species. He had a perfect record anyway. The day we discovered Earth started normally enough. Our scanners detected their primitive faster-than-light experiments, which naturally triggered our first contact protocols. Standard procedure: send the nicest battlecruiser in the fleet you know, the one with the doilies and the good china, and make a properly polite introduction. I remember standing on the bridge of the HMS Mind Your Manners, watching Earth grow larger in our view screen. Captain Cordial was at the helm, his tentacles perfectly pressed and his ceremonial greeting ribbons flowing gracefully in the artificial breeze. We had prepared the traditional first contact gift basket, complete with a selection of our finest antimatter scones and a handwritten thank you note for letting us invade their airspace. Everything was perfect. By the book. Precisely as Mother had taught us. Then we made our first transmission to their primitive planetary defense network. Greetings, dear friends. We come in peace and would be ever so grateful if you would be kind enough to possibly consider allowing us to introduce ourselves and perhaps share some light refreshments. Their response: yeah, what? Not yes, please, not even a simple if you would be so kind, just. Yeah, what? Captain Cordial actually fainted. Proper dead faint, all 18 tentacles going limp at once. Took 3 junior officers to catch him before he hit the deck. I had to step over his unconscious form to reach the communications console. I beg your pardon, I transmitted, maintaining my professional composure despite the horror of the situation. But I believe the proper response would be thank you for your kind invitation. We would be delighted to accept. There was a pause. A long pause. Then, look, if you're going to invade, just get on with it. If not, we've got a football game starting in 20 minutes. Football. They were prioritizing some primitive sporting ritual over proper first contact etiquette. I felt my primary heart skip a beat. My secondary heart wasn't doing much better. We most certainly are not invading, I replied, my voice only slightly strained. We are making a properly formal introduction according to Galactic Protocol Section 7, Subsection C, Paragraph 4, initial greetings and light refreshments. Another pause. Cool. Want a beer? That's when I knew. That's when I should have turned our ship around, gone straight back to Imperial High Command, and recommended we quarantine the entire sector. But no. I was young then, idealistic. I thought we could help them. After all, we were the Politeness Empire. We had literal millennia of experience in teaching proper manners to primitive species. Surely humans couldn't be that difficult. Oh, how wrong I was. System note: the following sections of this report contain disturbing accounts of deliberate discourtesy, flagrant disregard for proper tea service, and extreme cases of saying what one actually means instead of engaging in proper social circular speak. Reader discretion is advised. Our first diplomatic meeting with the humans was challenging. They sent their top negotiator, a being called Casey Rodriguez, who had apparently earned the nickname No Thanks through what they claimed was merit. The very concept made Captain Cordial need another fainting couch. The meeting was held aboard our ship, naturally. We had prepared everything according to proper protocol. The formal greeting hall was immaculate. The antimatter scones were perfectly crystallized, and we had even brought out the good gravity generators, the ones that make your tentacles flow in an aesthetically pleasing manner. Rodriguez showed up in something called jeans. Yo was their opening statement. No bow. No formal declaration of titles. Not even a basic recitation of their family's last 1,000 years of social faux pas, which is just basic courtesy. Captain Cordial had to be sedated. I maintained my composure, though my etiquette glands were swollen to twice their normal size. Most honored and distinguished representative of humanity, I began, following the short-form greeting only 4 hours long. We are absolutely delighted to. Look, Rodriguez interrupted. Can we skip to the point? I've got a cat to feed. A lesser diplomat might have declared war right then. But I am a professional. The point, I said, my voice only slightly strained, is that we, the Politeness Empire, having observed your species for some time, feel it is our duty, nay, our pleasure to assist you in achieving a proper level of civilization through the implementation of mandatory pleasantries. Rodriguez blinked. You want to what now? Teach you manners, I clarified, immediately feeling dirty for being so direct. Pass, Rodriguez said, standing up. Actually standing up in the middle of a formal negotiation. We're good. Thanks, though. You misunderstand, I said, my tentacles rigid with stress. This is not a request. The Politeness Empire has decreed that your species must be civilized, for your own good. Rodriguez paused at the door. Or what? Or we will be forced to implement. Mandatory etiquette training. That got their attention. Rodriguez turned slowly, and for the first time I saw something dangerous in their eyes, something that should have warned me. Are you threatening us? Oh heavens no, I gasped, genuinely shocked. We would never. That would be rude. We are simply indicating in the most polite way possible that we will take whatever steps necessary to ensure humanity learns proper manners, starting with please and thank you. Rodriguez's smile should have been my second warning. So, let me get this straight. You're going to try to force all humans to say please and thank you. Precisely. Good luck with that. They actually patted my tentacle as they left. Patted it, like some kind of casual acquaintance. I immediately filed my report with Imperial High Command, recommending immediate implementation of Operation Good Manners. The response was swift and decisive. Permission granted. Please proceed. Thank you for your service. At least someone still knew how to communicate properly. We gave humanity one standard solar rotation to reconsider their position. Their response came 3 hours early. Nah, LOL. That was it. Not even properly capitalized. The High Command's reaction was unprecedented. For the first time in the history of the Politeness Empire, we were authorized to use impolite measures. Looking back, I really should have paid more attention to Rodriguez's smile. But how were we to know? How could we possibly have predicted what would happen when we tried to force human beings to mind their manners? System note: the following account contains scenes of deliberate rudeness that may be disturbing to civilized beings. The Imperial Mental Health Department has established a support group for those traumatized by human informal speech patterns. Operation Good Manners began with what we thought was a foolproof plan. We would simply make it impossible for humans to access their precious coffee without saying please. Admiral Prim and Proper herself designed the protocols. All coffee machines would be replaced with our patented politeness dispensers. The machines were magnificent. State-of-the-art manners recognition technology, capable of detecting even the slightest hint of sincerity in a please or thank you. They would not dispense a single drop without proper etiquette. We deployed them simultaneously across the entire planet. The first sign that something was wrong came exactly 3.7 minutes later, when our sensors detected an unusual energy spike in something called Seattle. By the time Admiral Prim and Proper finished adjusting her ceremonial medals, 17% of our politeness dispensers had been converted into what humans call regular coffee makers, using nothing but paper clips and spite. Impossible, the Admiral declared, her monocle actually cracking from the shock. Those machines are hardwired to require proper manners. They cannot be bypassed. The humans had not only bypassed them, they'd taught them to swear. But we persevered. Clearly, we needed a more direct approach. That's when Admiral Prim and Proper had what she called her brilliant idea we would target something even more essential than coffee nuclear launch codes. The plan was simple. We modified Earth's nuclear facilities to require a please and thank you before releasing the launch codes. It was foolproof. After all, what responsible nuclear power would risk their entire defense system just to avoid basic manners? The answer, as it turned out, was all of them. The humans held an emergency global summit. Our surveillance showed the following exchange. Russian President, we cannot let them force us to say please US. President agreed. Options Chinese Premier, we could say please. But not mean it British Prime Minister, brilliant. Malicious compliance it is. I tried to warn Admiral Prim and Proper. The glint in their eyes during that meeting, it was the same one I'd seen in Rodriguez's smile. But she wouldn't listen. Nonsense, decorum, she said, straightening her already perfectly straight collar. They're finally showing signs of civilization. This calls for a celebration. Break out the good tea set. The next day, every nuclear facility on Earth began receiving launch code requests that went something like this. Oh, pretty please with sugar on top. Would you be ever so kind as to possibly consider sharing those launch codes? I would be ever so grateful. Thank you ever so much in advance. And might I add that you're looking particularly lovely today. You wonderful, wonderful system. The politeness was perfect. The syntax was flawless. The sincerity detectors were overwhelmed with the sheer volume of courtesy. And it was all completely, deliberately fake. Our systems crashed. They weren't designed to handle that level of concentrated sarcasm. Do you have any idea what happens to a quantum politeness detector when exposed to weapons-grade insincerity? I do. I still have nightmares about it. But Admiral Prim and Proper wasn't done. If they want to play rough, she declared, adjusting her now cracked monocle, then we shall respond with our ultimate weapon, the mandatory manner enforcement field. I tried to object. I really did. But she was already ordering the deployment of the MMEF generators, giant orbiting platforms that would create a field of forced politeness around the entire planet. Anyone caught in the field would be physically incapable of being rude. It's perfect, she declared. They literally won't be able to say anything without proper manners. That's when I made the mistake of asking, but what if they don't say anything at all? The Admiral's face went blank. In all my years of service, I had never seen her speechless before. Then the reports started coming in. System note: the following section contains accounts of organized resistance through silence, interpretive eyebrow raising, and other forms of non-verbal defiance that may be distressing to members of polite society. The humans had discovered our one weakness: we had only programmed the manner enforcement field to affect verbal communication. Within hours, an underground resistance movement had sprung up, communicating entirely through elaborate hand gestures, interpretive dance, and what they called throwing shade. But that was just the beginning. Those who did choose to speak quickly discovered that malicious compliance was a far more devastating weapon than silence. They began following our protocols with a level of enthusiasm that can only be described as psychological warfare. The breaking point came during the emergency Galactic Council meeting. We had invited human representatives to discuss their attitude problem. Rodriguez was there, naturally, along with delegates from every major Earth nation. The council chamber's automatic translators were not prepared for what happened next. Oh, my most gracious and elegant hosts, Rodriguez began, standing for what we assumed would be a standard 12-hour formal greeting. Please allow me to express my most heartfelt and sincere gratitude for this absolutely wonderful opportunity to engage in diplomatic discourse with such distinguished and remarkable beings as yourselves. 3 hours later, they were still on the opening pleasantries. And might I add, if it pleases the Council, how particularly resplendent Admiral Prim and Proper's fifth tentacle from the left is looking today, with its particularly exquisite shade of chartreuse, which reminds me of my dear grandmother's second-best doily, about which I must tell you the most fascinating story, if you would be so kind as to indulge me. 6 hours in, the Vrak's representative had to be escorted out, their dance glands exhausted from trying to keep up with the translation. ... And of course I would be terribly remiss if I didn't mention, with all due respect and the most profound appreciation, the simply delightful way the council chamber's antimatter scones complement the quantum doilies, which brings to mind another charming anecdote. By hour 12, Admiral Prim and Proper's monocle had cracked 3 more times. We had run out of replacement monocles. The situation was becoming dire. Rodriguez showed no signs of stopping. ... which naturally leads me to express my deepest and most sincere hopes that I am not causing any inconvenience by maintaining this most proper and formal level of discourse, as mandated by the absolutely wonderful and not at all oppressive Politeness Empire's own protocols, for which I am, of course, eternally grateful. At hour 18, something unprecedented happened. Admiral Prim and Proper, the very embodiment of proper etiquette, keeper of the sacred scrolls of small talk, and holder of 14 consecutive awards for most elaborate tea service, did the unthinkable. She interrupted. "Oh, please," she said, her voice cracking. "Please stop." Rodriguez paused mid-courtesy. "Oh, but my most gracious and patient Admiral, I couldn't possibly stop now. Why, I haven't even properly thanked each member of the Council individually for their unique contributions to the ambience of this meeting. And then, of course, there's the traditional post-greeting pre-meeting pleasantries to consider, followed by..." That's when the Admiral broke completely. Just say what you want. Directly. Please, I'm begging you." The smile that spread across Rodriguez's face should have been classified as a weapon of mass destruction. "Cool," they said, dropping all pretense of formality. "Here's what we want. You're going to turn off that manner enforcement field, pack up your politeness dispensers, and leave Earth alone. No more mandatory manners, no more proper protocols, no more antimatter scones." But that's not proper," the Admiral sputtered. "Yeah," Rodriguez agreed. "That's kind of the point. System note: the following section contains a detailed account of a high-ranking Imperial official having what human doctors later diagnosed as a complete meltdown. Reader discretion is advised." I'd like to say that was the end of it. That Admiral Prim and Proper's breakdown was our wake-up call. But no. Like all good bureaucracies, the Politeness Empire doubled down. Clearly declared the Emergency Committee for Dealing with Humans, ECDH, we haven't been firm enough. That's when the underground resistance really kicked into high gear. Led by Rodriguez, they called themselves the Please Resistance, though that name was purely ironic. Their actual motto was, "We'll do it because we want to, thanks." Their tactics were devastating in their simplicity. First came the Thank You Terrorism campaign. Whenever our agents tried to enforce proper manners, they'd be swarmed by humans being aggressively grateful for things we hadn't done. "Thank you so much for trying to control our behavior. We're just so grateful for your completely unwanted interference. Oh my goodness, how can we ever repay you for this totally unnecessary guidance?" Our sincerity detectors were useless. The readings were off the charts, yet somehow registered as both perfectly polite and utterly devastating. Then came the passive-aggressive resistance cells. They took our own protocols and turned them against us. Every interaction with Imperial forces began to follow this pattern. "Imperial agent," you will say, "please, and thank you, human." Oh, bless your heart. You're trying so hard. Do you know what it does to an etiquette enforcer's psyche to be patted on the head and told you're doing your best, sweetie, by the very beings they're trying to civilize? We lost dozens of good agents to early retirement. But the worst was yet to come. The resistance discovered our one unbreakable rule: we couldn't ignore a properly formatted request, so they began submitting them, all of them, for everything. Dear most esteemed and gracious Empire, I would be ever so grateful if you could please provide a detailed response to this completely irrelevant query about the proper spoon placement for consuming antimatter scones, with particular attention to the gravitational implications of left-handed dining in a quantum setting. Our bureaucracy was drowning in paperwork. Each request was perfect, following every protocol to the letter. We had to respond. It was in the rules. Admiral Prim and Proper, fresh from her 6th mandatory meditation retreat, tried to counter by implementing new, stricter protocols. The humans responded by creating the Department of Excessive Courtesy. They appointed a human named Karen as their chief compliance officer. To this day, senior Imperial officials wake up screaming, "No, I don't want to speak to your manager." The Admiral's final breakdown came during what humans now call the Great Parliamentary Filibuster of Pleasantries. A human representative, following our protocols exactly, spent 47 hours discussing the proper way to thank someone for holding a door open in a zero-gravity environment. We found the Admiral in her quarters, surrounded by broken monocles, muttering something about just say thank you and move on over and over. The Resistance had won, but they weren't done. Oh no. They had learned from us, you see. They had learned about proper protocol and formal procedures. And they were about to use that knowledge to end this war once and for all. System note: the following section contains disturbing accounts of humans using proper channels and correct paperwork as weapons of war. Administrative discretion is advised. Galactic Database Entry 7249P, continued final update status resolution and recommendations. The end came not with a bang, but with a properly filed petition. The Please Resistance, having thoroughly studied our bureaucratic procedures, submitted Form 847B request for immediate cessation of mandatory politeness enforcement due to catastrophic cultural incompatibility, in triplicate, with all the correct signatures, including a cover sheet. We had to accept it. It was properly filed. The terms of surrender were unique. The humans, having thoroughly defeated us with our own protocols, decided to be nice about it. Their words, not mine. The final agreement, now known as the Politeness Protocols, included the following provisions. 1. The Politeness Empire shall immediately cease all attempts to enforce mandatory manners on humanity. 2. Humans retain the right to say please and thank you only when they genuinely mean it. 3. All politeness dispensers shall be converted into regular coffee makers. Humans insisted this had already been accomplished anyway. 4. Admiral prim and proper shall be provided with a lifetime supply of replacement monocles. 5. The phrase "bless your heart" is officially classified as a weapon of mass destruction. They even said please when submitting the agreement. Voluntarily, just to prove they could. I retired shortly after. 20 years of perfect service ended by a species that turned politeness itself into a weapon. These days I run a small consulting firm, helping other civilizations avoid our mistakes. Our slogan? Please don't make humans say please. Admiral prim and proper eventually recovered, though she now twitches whenever someone holds a door open for her. She's opened a very successful meditation retreat on the Outer Rim, specializing in helping former etiquette enforcers deal with their trauma. The therapy sessions are completely informal. She insists. As for Rodriguez, last I heard, they were appointed Earth's new ambassador of calculated casualness. They sent me a thank you card. It was deliberately improper in every way possible. I have it framed in my office. Final recommendations. 1. Under no circumstances should any civilization attempt to enforce mandatory politeness on humans. 2. If a human says please or thank you, accept it as the rare gift it is. 3. If a human says bless your heart, run. 4. Never, ever try to come between a human and their coffee. Addendum: the Vraks have submitted a formal request to study human passive aggressiveness as a new form of interpretive dance. The request has been denied for the safety of the galaxy. Final system note: this concludes the official record of Operation Good Manners. The document has been sealed in the Imperial Archives under critical failures and things we don't talk about at tea time. A support group for victims of human informal speech meets every third rotation at the Imperial Community Center. Casual dress permitted. No antimatter scones will be served. End of entry.